Hello everyone. In today's video we are going to be learning how to cut and sew this beautiful BUBU dress with an ashoke design in front. This is a fabric that I used for mine, and I used about 2 yards of Ankara fabric. So at this point I just place 1 yard of fabric on fold like this, and I'm going to be taking the measurements. So the length and width of the fabric is as shown. The width of it on fold is about 18 inches, while the length of this fabric is dependent on the length of this dress you want to sew. Mine is 37 inches. So the first thing we're going to do is to draw a straight line from the top of the fabric, and from this straight line I'm going to be marking out my bust measurement. So just take your measuring tape and measure from your shoulder down to your bust, that is the widest part of your bust, and then you draw a straight line like this. So after this, the next thing I'm going to do is to take my neck width. I'm using 3 inches for mine, and then from this point I'll go down by 1 inch right there, and with my front curve I'm going to connect it, drawing the neckline for the back. So after that I'm going to divide my shoulder by 2 and I'll mark it. So my shoulder by 2 is 7. So from that 7 inches point I'm going to determine how long I want the sleeve of this dress to be. So I'm using 10 inches from that shoulder point, so I'm going to mark it right there. So from this point I'm going to go down by 1 inch, and with my straight rule I'm going to connect it all the way to that 3 inches neck width point like this. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out because I noticed that it's not showing very well and I want us to understand what I'm doing. Okay, so from this point I'm going to determine how wide I want the sleeve to be. I'm using 10 inches from there. So from this 10 inches points I'm going to draw a straight line all the way to the other side like this. So this will be the new bust line that I'll be using. So on this bust line I'm going to divide my bust by 4. I'll mark it there, and I'm going to add extra 4 inches to it. So you can use 3 inches if you don't want it to be too big. I use 4 inches here, but I reduced it to 3 inches later on in the video. And then the next thing to do is to draw out your hip line measurement. So take your measuring tape and measure from your shoulder down to your hip, that is the widest part of your hip, and that will be your hip line. So mine is 23 inches. I'll just go ahead and mark it, and I'll draw a straight line like this. So on the hip line I'm going to divide my hip by 4, and then I'll add extra 4 inches to it. So whatever you add for the bust, you're going to add the same thing to the hip. So I added 4 inches right there. Then from this point right here I'm going to go out by 2 inches, and I'm going to connect it from that sleeve points through the 2 inches points all the way to the hip line like this. So with this I have a curve that will be the armhole for this dress. And then from here I have 14 inches here, so I'll minus 1 inch from that 14 inches, and I'll be marking it on the length of the dress. So at this point I'm just going to connect it, and I'll add half an inch for sewing allowance, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut it out as shown. Okay, so after we are done with this, I'm going to place this fabric onto the remaining fabric, and I'm going to cut exactly what we have right here. So the down one will be for the back, while this one I'm going to be using it as the front pattern. So for the front we need a V neckline, so I'm just going to place my measuring tape on that 3 inches point down to where you want your V neck to stop. So I'm using 9 inches for mine. If you want you can use 10 inches depending on how low you want your V-neck to be. And then from this point I'm going to go in by 1.5 inches right here, and I'll mark it. So I'm going to mark 1.5 inches all the way down to the length of the dress. So I'm going to connect from that 9 inches point all the way to the length of the dress, drawing a straight line like this. Then after that I'll connect from that 3 inches point. I'll draw a straight line to the 9 inches point at that 1.5 inches area. And then after that I'll just go ahead and cut it out, as you can see right here. So when you open this up, this is what we have right here. So that part that we cut out, we are going to be using ashoke instead of the fabric, so that we are going to have that design. After we're done, I'm just going to keep the front aside, and I'm going to bring the back pattern. So this is what the back looks like. So now I'm just going to be joining the back to the front, and I'm going to be joining it at the shoulder line right there. I'll do the same thing on the other side as well. So after you're done joining, make sure you iron it open. That is the allowance. I'm using 1/2 inch sewing allowance, so make sure you iron it open. And now I'm just going to be arranging it like this. So I'm making sure that if the shoulder line of the left side aligns with that of the right side, and this is the neckline right here. So at this point, I'm just going to go ahead and measure from the back neckline through the shoulder point all the way to the front neckline down to the length of the dress in front right there. So what I have is about 39 inches in total. You can repeat this measurement just to be sure for yours, and this is the ashoke that I use for this dress. So now I'm just going to make sure that the length of the ashoke is 39 inches on fold, right? So if your ashoke is not long enough, you can just join 2 ashoke together and iron it so that you can have a long piece when you place it on fold. So when you place it on fold like this, just make sure it's 39 inches when you are done, or it can even be more than 39 inches. Okay, you can cut off the excess when you are done sewing. So at this point, I will measure the neckline from the back to the front. So from the back to the front, mine is 12 inches right there. So that's where the neckline is supposed to stop. So I'm just going to measure that 12 inches on the ashoke here. So from this point, I will sew all the way down. So I'm going to make sure I'm sewing at the middle of the ashoke. So by the time you're done sewing, this is what we have. I've sewn from this point, that's that 12 inches point, all the way down to the length of the ashoke. So after you're done, I'm just going to go ahead and fold this. So just pay attention to the way I'm folding it right now. So just fold it as I'm doing. You can take your time and iron this so that it stays in place. So just make sure you fold it exactly how I did mine. Okay, so another thing that I did was from the midpoint of the ashoke right here, I measured it, and what I have is more than 3 inches. So I'm just going to go ahead and make it 2.5 inches because I don't want it to be too wide. So I'll just go ahead and cut out the excess right here. So I'll cut from the left side through the neckline all the way to the right side, and by the time you're done, this is what we have right here. So just take your time and iron this. You can pin the upside and the downside together so that by the time you're joining it to the fabric, it is not shaking. And then also make sure you notch the midpoint of the ashoke so that you can know exactly how to place it when joining it on the fabric. So this is the fabric right here that I'll be joining the ashoke to, and this is the neckline. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to arrange it like this, right side facing each other, and I'm going to join the midpoint of the ashoke to the midpoint of the back. So make sure you notch the back midpoint as well so that you can join them together and it will be equal. So I'll just go ahead and join from that midpoint all the way down, and I'll be using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. I'll do the same thing on the other side as well. I'll join it using 1/2 inch sewing allowance. So after you're done sewing and you turn everything to the right side, make sure you press it, and this is what we have right here. Okay, so for the pockets, I've cut out a piece of fabric that I'll be using for the pockets, and I've placed it on fold like this. So what I'm going to do is I'll make sure that my hand, when I open my hand, the fabric is wide enough and long enough to accommodate my hand, and I'll just go ahead and trace out my hand onto the fabric. So it must not be perfect, just make sure it's long enough and wide enough. That's the most important thing. And you're going to make sure that your hand would easily pass through the pocket after you are done sewing, right? Just go ahead and cut it out like this. I'll do the same thing onto another piece of fabric. So I have 4 pieces here, 2 pieces for the left side and 2 pieces for the right side. So after I'm done, I'm just going to mark from my shoulder. I'm going to trace out my waistline, which is 16, and I'll add 1 inch to it, that is 17. So I'm going to place the pockets right side facing each other, mind you, at that 17 inches point, and I'm going to sew it onto the fabric like this. I'll do the same thing on the other side of the dress, 17 inches downward, and I'll sew. So after you sew, you top stitch it, and then you open it up, and this is what we have right here. Another thing we are going to do is to add the ashoke to the sleeve part of the dress. And what I did was to fold my ashoke into two, and I also folded half an inch inward like this. So I'll just go ahead and iron this, and then I'll be joining it to the sleeve part of the dress. So open the sleeve up like this, and then you join it using half an inch sewing allowance. Just place it in between the upside and the downside, and you're going to sew like top stitch it. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. So after you're done sewing, just sew the side seam together following the lines that I'm showing you, and you go ahead and hem the down part of the dress as well. And that's basically all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. This is actually what it looks like by the time I'm done sewing. So make sure you iron this. And the reason why I'm not wearing this is because it's not mine. Whenever I sew a dress and I don't wear it, just know it's because it's not mine. But just know that it came out very well, very beautiful, and my client loved it. So thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like the video and subscribe.